the book that we will be looking at today is Davey and the Awatea, with Davey being the captain, Captain Arthur Davey, and Awatea being the said liner. Now, for those who aren't too familiar with this vessel, the Awatea, which is the Maori word for Eye of the Dawn, belonged to the Union Steamship Line, which was one of the major ocean liner companies that ran out of New Zealand and voyaged as far as the UK, the Pacific, and Vancouver. This major company is actually well covered in books. You have a fleet history with this lovely book, and a slightly more condensed fleet history over here, and that is Awatea's sister ship, the Rangatira, whose design was a broad template for the Awatea. You also have beautiful illustrated profiles of some of the older vessels in this book, and a wonderful book over here which has a wonderful chapter on the Awatea itself. So the line itself is well covered, but again, it's probably next to unknown for those who are focused on the North Atlantic. And another reason for you to broaden your horizons and look at beyond that ocean into some of the fascinating vessels that ran on the other side of the Earth. Now, to this book. As you can see in the photos, it is well illustrated and the text is nice and breezy. We get a wonderful insight into the life of Arthur Davey, a man who worked extremely hard to ensure that his ships were the best, ran on time, arrived on time, and set the standards for the Union Steamship Company. He expected the best, and he got the best. And through his hard work, he gradually built himself up from working on sailing ships to some of the smaller steamers, until eventually getting command of the company's flagship, which in 1936 was the Awatea. The Awatea itself brought the Union Steamship Company into the 1930s. Its vessels before then were extremely well built, very comfortable, very reliable, but unfortunately very dated. And with the onset of competition, particularly from Matson lines, the company had to invest in a new ship so that it can move forward into the 1930s. P&O and Orient were already modernizing with their own trans-Pacific vessels. And so the company basically took a gamble. This is also in the early 30s, during the Great Depression, and invested in a new flagship, a fast, ultra-modern vessel. And as this book notes, one of the applications was done by Vladimir Jurkovic. Unfortunately, his design was rejected, but it's fun to think that we could have had a miniature Kiwi-flavoured Normandy running in the Tasman Sea. The Awatea, as it was and as it came about, was both designed and inspired by the earlier Rangatira, and took a lot of hints from Orient Line's Orion. Indeed, as the book notes, a lot of the workers that worked on the Orion also ended up working on this ship. The book covers the history of the ship, from its construction through in depth as well into its layout and its details. And as you can see from the photos, it's got the beautiful streamlined wooden interiors that seems like a combination of the Queen Mary and the Queen of Bermuda and Monarch of Bermuda as well, the millionaire ships. It's a beautiful combination of that style. Art Deco elegance epitomized. The Awatea, like many other fine liners of the 1930s, was destined to have a short career. And this book represents the most comprehensive account of that time. Its line voyages, its exciting races against the Matson liners are all detailed here. And indeed, how Arthur Davey ran his ship and what life was like on board during his command for both passengers and crew is all detailed in a beautifully flowing, wonderfully easy to read text. Unfortunately, World War II intervened. Arthur Davey retired, and the partnership between him and his beloved flagship was broken. The Awatea was then converted into a landing ship, and during the Operation Torch activities, it was set upon and bombed by Luftwaffe fighters and bombers. The crew put up such a fierce resistance, but to no avail, and the Awatea ended up burning and sinking. However, such a fight had been put up that the Admiral commented that the Awatea, and in particular its crew, had put up the fight of a battleship. The crew were rescued by the Dutch liner Marnix Saint Aldegonda, which in turn would end up also being lost in the war, while its sister, the Johan van Oldenbarneveld, would go on to have a very long career, and would also end up burning as the Laconia. But that is veering way off course. Back to Awatea. The book concludes with the final chapters on Arthur Davey's life. He was so proud of his beloved liner that he even named his house Awatea. This is the most comprehensive book that you will find of that particular era and of this ship's life. The books that I showed you earlier will have a brief and illustrated account of that ship's life. For those who aren't aware of liner activities beyond the North Atlantic, this is a very approachable, easy to read, wonderfully illustrated account and a great introduction into some of the other great companies and ships that have sailed the seven seas. It is a beautiful book, it is very well illustrated, and as I've constantly said, the text is so easy to breeze through. For that, it is a 4 captain's hats. Should this book ever go into another publication, it would be great to maybe have a color image or painting of the Awatea, maybe a color set of inserts, a deck plan, and maybe a side profile. But these are all tidbits. A lot of what I've just said you can find in some of the other books that I've already shown. It is a beautiful book, well illustrated, fantastic account of a ship that deserved a much longer life and of a colourful personality. We don't have captains like this anymore, and this man was a standout both in his professionalism and in the way that he conducted his activities on board. Do check it out, revisit the life of the Awatea, learn about some of the other companies that served the great seas of the world, and you will not regret it. And if there are any other books about some of the lesser known liners that you would like reviewed or that even you would like to find out more about, please let me know in the comments below, and I will certainly dig through my archives and review them for you. So until the next time, enjoy and happy reading, everyone.